Hey there, I'm Dr. Shauna Dingman from Elevate Women's Health Centre in Port Perry, Ontario, and I'm really excited to share with you this workshop called Eat by Design. And the reason I first recorded this workshop or first created this workshop was actually for my own patients. We talk about all of the different pillars of health, and one of them is for sure getting your spine and nerve system checked and corrected where necessary. But what I noticed is that, patients would be coming to me, they would be getting their corrections, but if they were going home and doing things, for example, like eating all sorts of things that were not healthy for their body, it's kind of like pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. So what I started to do was teach all sorts of other different lifestyle things that when you're not in my office, these are things that will help you get healthy quicker and stay healthy longer. And then, of course, we started bringing those same workshops out into the community. So for people who aren't interested in chiropractic or don't want to come in and get their spines and nerve system checked, there's lots of things that you can do in your own home: movement, exercise, obviously nutrition, how you think. Those are all things that can help to create more health in your family. So this is sort of one of our signature Life by Design workshops. When we talk about Life by Design, it's doing things in a way that is good for the human body, good for the human frame, good for the human mind, doing things in a way that we were sort of designed to do. So Eat by Design, I've broken it down into really, there are 5 simple nutrition principles that no matter what kind of fad is out there or health fad diet is out there, the principles of good nutrition should never change. Whether you're at home, whether you're at the cottage, whether you're at an all-inclusive on vacation, whether you're running your kids back and forth to gymnastics and soccer and whatever else. So these 5 principles, if you can just own these principles, you will be able to create awesome, healthy nutrition for you and your entire family for the rest of your lives. So bear with me while I pull this up on the screen, and let's get started with Eat by Design. Okay. Whoops, should have started from the beginning. Okay, so Eat by Design, the simple principles of healthy eating. Who am I? So that's me there on the far left-hand side. That's my family. My husband Craig is in the blue golf shirt there in the middle. He's also a chiropractor, and we often teach these workshops together. If you've never met my kids, Jackson is my oldest. He's in the red shirt there. He's currently finishing up university, and then my daughter Jenna is beside him, and my other son Cole, my youngest, with one of our pets, our cat Bandit, on his lap. Bandit was just a little kitten at that time, so we had him up at the cottage. We've got 2 cats and a dog. So, we have always tried to live our lives as healthy as possible. We've tried to instill in our own children the ways that we are designed to eat and move and think. We've adjusted these kids since the days they were born. All of our kids were born at home, and they had their spines checked as soon as they were born. And just so you know, 2 of them were actually born with spinal issues that needed correction right from birth. So, getting children checked right from the get-go is awesome. It's so much easier to prevent things rather than to fix things later on. So that's my family. There are 5 of us. Craig and I believe at Elevate Health Centers, you were designed to be extraordinary. Health is really a default. And when you think about how quickly kids bounce back from things, how quickly their bodies are able to adapt to things so much better than adults, I think that health really is our default. And for those of us as adults, when we're suffering from ill health, really, if we can just remove some of those barriers and just allow the body to do what it already knows it wants to do, it's so much easier to get you back to healing. So the thing that's interesting is that we live in an age right now where we have access to, I think, just about every piece of information that's ever been created. We all have access to it. We have more access to healthy information than we've ever had. Then why are we so sick? It's certainly not from a lack of information, because the information is out there. What I find most patients tell me is that It's so overwhelming, the amount of information, and there seem to be new things on the news every week. People don't really know what to believe and not believe anymore. And that's why I think it's really important if I can help you learn and understand principles. Principles should never change, no matter what the news is telling you and no matter what's coming out. They're kind of like laws where uh, they just don't change. Things will come and go, but if you incorporate the principles of thinking well, for example, into the way you do life, or eating well into the way you do life, it doesn't matter what kind of fad diet comes and goes, the principles will never change. And it's confusing. I mean, I admit it's confusing for me when I hear things coming out. And that's why it's so great that you have not just one, but really two chiropractors. My husband and I both tend to talk about this stuff ad nauseum. We research, we really sort of pick through all the different information that's out there, the sources. We look at who's funding it, we look at what the realities of it are, and then we try and simplify it for you guys as much as possible so that you don't have to try and figure it out on your own. So the question that I always ask people is, do you know what your genetic requirements are for a healthy life? So if you look at this plant, for example, and I've done this, we sometimes get asked to come in and teach in the elementary schools. We'll be like a guest science class teacher. And when I show kids this picture of this plant that's clearly dying, and I ask them, what does this plant need in order to be healthy? They always hit the nail on the head every time, and so would you. If I could hear what you're saying, you would probably tell me that it needs water, so good food, it needs sunlight, and it needs to have attention paid to it. And that's, we are the same. Every living thing has certain genetic requirements for being healthy. And if we just fill those genetic requirements, then for the most part, our bodies will go along and function really, really well. I love this quote from an article in the Journal of Applied Physiology that there is overwhelming evidence that illness and disease are from living incongruently with our genetic requirements for life. And I think that word incongruently says so much. When you live in congruence with your values and principles, emotionally, you're going to be as healthy as possible. When you live congruently with sort of the things that your body physically needs for health, you will be as healthy as possible. So then the question is, well, what do our genetics dictate we actually need in order to be healthy? So we often talk about, the 4 different pillars for health. And really, you could break it down. You could say there are more pillars of health, but let's just, for simplicity, talk about the pillars of health. So if I asked you, what does a person need to be healthy? You would probably say, well, we need good food. We need food, good food, preferably. We need water, which I'm going to include that under food. We need sleep, for sure. I don't actually have that necessarily in any of these slides here, but you definitely need sleep. We need exercise. Our bodies need to move. We need to have good emotional health. We need to think healthy thoughts. And the one that nobody ever thinks of, but is so, so, so important, is we need power, right? If somebody goes to the hospital and their heart isn't working, they technically can still be alive. You can live for a short amount of time without your heart beating. You can live for a short amount of time without breath in your lungs, but you can't live for a nanosecond without power going from your brain to your body. And that's why when somebody loses brain activity, they're brain dead. That is the definition of death. So this idea of having a good power supply or a good connection between your brain and your body is absolutely critical for health. If your brain is trying to tell your body something, and there's something going on that your body can't hear it can't possibly function the way it was designed to. And at some point in time, that's going to create some sort of lack of function, which is going to result in disease. So these are the 4 pillars of health. And actually, we teach the Power by Design workshop within the office. Every single new patient, part of their report of findings really is Power by Design. I teach them the importance of the brain-body connection and how it works. And these other ones, Eat by Design, Move by Design, and Think by Design, we teach those as separate workshops, and we teach them all to people as they come into the practice and they're new to the practice. These are sort of part of a core curriculum of workshops that we give them totally free. It's just part of their care that help you to understand how to be healthy in all the other areas of your life. So if I go back to this slide up here, there's a word there, epigenetics. It's kind of the big hot word right now in science, because the more we understand about epigenetics, the easier it is to be healthy. And it's not just what do our genes expect, but how does the environment that we create around us and within our bodies, how does it actually affect our cells in order to be healthy? So if I told you, you guys probably have seen hydrangea plants before. You see them a lot at Easter time. They come out, they have these big, beautiful flowers and they smell so nice. And you typically will see them, they're either blue or pink or some combination of that. And I bought one a couple of years ago, and I love this as an example of epigenetics and what epigenetics is, because on the tag for my hydrangea, it said you can enjoy this on your table for the next couple of weeks, but make sure you plant it in your garden after. And depending on the pH of your soil, so depending on how acid or base your soil is, you will get either pink flowers or blue flowers. So, and I can't remember which one it was, but must be that the more basic the soil is, the flowers turn blue, because I had a pink hydrangea, and when I planted it, within probably a week, the flowers turned blue. So the DNA, the genetics of the plant were no different, but the environment of the soil around it caused the cells of that plant to express something different. And that's what epigenetics is. So the environment that you create around yourself and within your body is so, so important for how your cells will express health. And that's why we talk about Eat by Design, because the things that you eat, the nutrition that you put in your body has a massive impact on the internal environment that your cells are being exposed to, and therefore has a massive impact on whether or not you're going to be healthy. So let's just dive right into the 5 principles of Eat by Design. The first one is eat real food first. And what I mean by this is the closer you can get to eating food the way it was actually sort of put on this earth, the easier it is for your body to, first of all, recognize it and then know what to do with it, use it in a useful way. So if you think about the difference between a carrot, for example, or bear paw. Which one is your body going to be able to know what to do with best? Well, the carrot, because a bear paw is something that has been processed. It's got all these different ingredients, and I don't mean to pick on whoever made bear paws. I'm just using that as an example. For some reason, that was the first thing that came to my mind. It's highly processed. So it probably started out with some real stuff, but everything is so processed in it. It's got all these additives and preservatives and chemicals in it that your body, when you eat something like that, your body kind of goes, huh? I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do with this, but I'm just going to do the best that I can. And that should make sense to you. If I said to you, which is healthier, an apple or a bag of chips? You would know that an apple is. Now it gets a little more difficult if I said to you, which is healthier, pasta, like lasagna, or pizza? Okay, well then it comes down to, again, what are the ingredients that you're using? Are you using a store-bought lasagna that has a list as long as my arm of ingredients in it versus making your own pizza, making the pizza dough and adding fresh tomatoes and fresh mushrooms and fresh onions and fresh garlic and, using fresh tomatoes for the tomato sauce and all that? When you look at how will my body be able to recognize this food best, that's what Eat Real Food First is about. And honestly, I put this as the first principle because I really think this is the single most important principle, and all the other ones kind of follow from this. So if you can try as best you can to eat real foods as much as possible, this will make all the difference in your family's nutrition. So here's some ideas for you. We get a veggie box from a local organic farmer. There's lots of, I think they call them crop shares and things like that. There are lots of places in and around us now that do this kind of thing. So we get a veggie box that's delivered to our door every 2 weeks. So we've sort of figured out, okay, what size and quantity and frequency works the best for us. We get this massive bin of vegetables that does pretty much most of the vegetables for our family for 2 weeks, and they're all locally grown, they're all organic. And the great thing about that too is that you get the vegetables that are in season. And that's really important because our bodies were actually designed to eat foods that are local, foods that are in season, and again, real food. So, instead of taking a box from the freezer section of the grocery store, some kind of a TV dinner or something like that that has some frozen veggies and has some kind of a pasta, we would chop up the veggies, just stir fry them up, create some kind of a sauce for it, whether it's a cream sauce or a tomato sauce or just some kind of an oil type sauce, and then maybe pair it with a chicken breast or something like that. That is super healthy. It's something that's very easy for your body to recognize. For breakfast, instead of having cereal like out of a box, we would either eat oatmeal or we have a lot of eggs for breakfast. Simple foods that our bodies go, oh, I know exactly what to do with that. I know exactly how to extract the nutrition from it, because the things that you eat today become the cells of tomorrow. So I guess if you want to think about it that way, think about that one thing. If the food that you eat tonight for dinner is going to create the heart cells, the eye cells, the liver cells, the lung cells that you have tomorrow, do you want them to be a McDonald's Happy Meal, or do you want them to be real food, vegetables and chicken, vegetables and a steak, something like that? Which one is going to make the healthiest cells? And so that's really the point of eat real food first. Not all food is created equal. So if you look at the pictures here, we've got a donut that, oh man, I love donuts. That's a cruller, one of my favorites. And then we've got this beautiful array of vegetables. Honestly, this array of vegetables, it could have been taken from my veggie box this week. But one of the biggest things to think about is nutrient density. So, as part of Eat Real Foods First, one of the sort of sub-principles in that is eat the most nutrient-dense foods as you can. So if you look at that donut, it probably has some vitamin C added to it, like maybe enriched in the flour. But do you think you're going to get more vitamin C from, 50 grams of a donut or 50 grams of that yellow pepper that's up there? Obviously the yellow pepper, right? So when you're looking at nutrition, always see if you can pick the most nutrient-dense foods first. Second principle is manage sugar. Stop letting it manage you. We are a society of sugar addicts, and I know that I don't need to tell you this. I mean, this has been all over the news for so long now. When we first started teaching this, my husband and I started teaching it about, maybe 11 or 12 years ago, how devastating to your health that sugar is. It was revolutionary at that point, and people were like, no, it can't be. But now people go, yeah, I know. I mean, we still do what we do, but people at least know sugar is kind of the bad guy. And again, sugar by its nature is not necessarily bad. It's the amount that we eat it, the amount that we are eating it. And here's the thing, when I ask people, well, do you have a lot of sugar in your diet? They often will say, no, I don't. I don't drink pop, and I don't put sugar on my cereal, and I don't put sugar in my tea or coffee, right? They're thinking about the sugar that you take a teaspoon of and you add it to something without realizing every time you eat a donut, every time you eat a piece of bread, every time you have a cracker, every time you have a bagel, every time you have a serving of rice or pasta, not to mention, obviously, things like chocolate bars and candy and things like that, it's all sugar. As soon as it hits your tongue, your salivary amylase starts to break it down into its most basic forms, which is sugar, it's glucose. So, even people will say, well, what about whole grain breads? Yeah, there can be some nutritional merit to that, but when it's broken down in your body, it's still sugar. And the problem is we have so much sugar in our diet now. There is a reason why adult onset diabetes or type 2 diabetes is now almost considered an epidemic. It's because we have so many sources of sugar in our diets now that our insulin receptors are absolutely overloaded. Insulin is what helps your body deal with sugar because, if you ask any diabetic, high sugar levels are toxic. They are poison to your body and they will kill you. So sugar is good and our body relies on it for energy, but only within a certain range. And if you go out of that range, you are in such deep trouble. And the problem is that now so many people are walking around with their insulin receptors shot that's why they need to take insulin or they will die because their bodies can't handle the sugar. So understanding what is sugar. When you read a list of ingredients and things, so many of the things in the ingredients are sugars, but you probably don't even know that. So really educating yourself on all the different words that sugars are is really important. And again, if you go back to principle one, eat real food first, and you're mostly eating fruits, veggies, things that have come from the land, potatoes and sweet potatoes and corn. Okay, so all those do break down to sugar, but still, like um, fish, chicken, beef, lamb, peanut butter, those kinds of things. All of those things help to reduce your sugar load. Eat your veggies. This is probably, and again, we're still sort of in this principle of eating real food slash managing your sugar. I think one of the most under-eaten food groups really is vegetables. And if there is one food group that if I was going to tell you, I don't know you, but I probably could tell you this, you need to increase your veggies. It's this one. Veggies are so good for us. They're not my favorite. I would much rather eat fruits than veggies, but when I think of the nutrition and all the wonderful things that come out of veggies, and typically the sugar levels tend to be much lower in our bodies from veggies than fruit. There are so many great things that come from veggies. I think we all need to really just double our portion of veggies, and that is a big part of eating by design. So then that asks the question, well, is fruit bad? No, fruit isn't bad. Again, by its nature, fruit has lots of great things. It's got fiber, it's got all sorts of vitamins and antioxidants and wonderful things in it. But because it's so sweet, some people eat way too much fruit. And I think where this really came to light for me was when I started doing a lot of coaching in nutrition. Once or twice a year, I lead a big group weight loss and cleanse kind of thing, where I really I give people kind of one-on-one coaching. I give them a cleanse program, I give them recipes, I give them meal plans, everything that they need for 30 days to lose some weight and to basically reset how they're doing nutrition. And it's all based on these principles. And when I would get people who they would lose a little bit of weight and then it would just plateau and they would say, I'm doing everything right, but I just can't seem to lose any more weight. Usually the thing that was holding them back was too much fruit. Fruit has a certain kind of sugar in it called fructose. And the thing about fructose is that it doesn't fill you up as much as glucose. So you can eat a lot of fruit and not feel full enough, but it just wreaks havoc again on your body and on your whole, your glycemic index. So, I think 1 or 2 servings of fruit a day. So what I tell my kids is have 1 or 2 fruits a day. Have an apple and an orange, or maybe just an apple. 1 is better than 2. 2, I wouldn't go more than 2. So no more than 2 fruits a day, or a small cup, not an actual cup, but like half a cup, say, of strawberries or berries or something like that. Have that, but then no more. If you're craving that kind of snacky thing, you probably need to drink more. You didn't eat enough at your meal, or have some veggies and put some hummus on it or some nut butter or something like that. So is fruit bad? No, but like anything, too much fruit is bad. Okay, here's another part to this. Earn your carbs. Okay, carbs, as I said, they break down to sugar, so that's why it's all in the manage your sugar principle. Have you ever noticed when you go to a restaurant, you get this little serving of meat on your plate, you get a little serving of veggies, but then you get this massive serving of French fries or a big baked potato or a big thing of rice pilaf or whatever. Carbs are cheap. And that's why we eat so much of them, I think, and they're so darn good. And for a short time, they fill you up. But as I said, carbs are just sugars. As soon as they hit your tongue, they begin to break down to sugar and they overload your insulin system. So you really have to watch how much carbs. You need carbs. Carbs by their nature are not bad. You need them. That's our body's primary energy source. So we were designed that way. But the problem is we have so many carbs in our weekly nutrition that we have gone so far overboard, it's damaging us. And the last thing that I want to say about this is, speaking as a woman in her late 40s, one of the things I've noticed is that the older I get, the harder I have to work to earn my carbs. So if you're someone who's really physically active, my husband is a marathon runner. I'm pretty active. I typically work out 5, 6 times a week. I walk a lot. And I'm a chiropractor, so I'm standing all day, moving around. I'm not very sedentary. So I can probably have more carbs in my diet than someone else my age with a very sedentary, say a desk job and has a long commute back and forth to work and doesn't really work out or things like that. So I think this is really important to know that, that idea of as you get older, these things just sit more on your hips. They totally do. So you have to earn your carbs through your whole life. But as you get older, the older you get, every carb seems to count like 2 or 3 times what it did when you were younger. So you have to work a lot harder to earn them. Okay, the third principle, eat protein with every meal. I think, again, this is really important, and especially I think of seniors and often how they will skip this part of their nutrition because, especially if a spouse has passed away and they're eating for one, it's so much easier to they call them the tea and toast generation for a reason. Eat protein with every meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and every snack if you can. It helps to really balance out everything. So it's very easy to eat carbs. Fruit, our veggie sticks or whatever, our wagon wheels, granola bars, like think of all the snacks you put in your kid's lunchbox, they're mostly all carbs. What proteins do is they slow the sugar rush. So they really help your body kind of digest those sugars much more slowly so that the peaks in your blood is much more even. It helps the insulin take its time to bring the sugar into the cells. So protein is important for so many things, and I'm going to get to that in a second, but the first thing that I want you to know is that it just helps your sugar levels stay balanced, and everything in life is about balance. So here are 3 reasons to make protein a major part of your nutrition. First of all, it increases your metabolism. So think about your metabolism like a furnace inside you. The higher the furnace burns, the more fat it burns. And that's, for most of us, that's a really good thing. The second thing, like I said, it helps to balance blood sugar and it helps with insulin insensitivity. This is such a big deal right now. Like I said, with type 2 diabetes on the rise the way it is, we need more protein and more healthy fats in our diets to offset the effect that these carbs and sugars are having. And the third thing is that it's satiating. Satiating means it fills you up. So you ever notice that you go to certain fast food restaurants and you eat a meal and it tastes so good while you're eating it, but then an hour later you're hungry again? That is when you don't have enough satiating nutrition in your meal, and fast food will do that because it's nutritionally void, and all your body's doing is it's eating it and eating it and going, do I have enough? Do I have enough vitamins? Do I have enough minerals? Do I have enough antioxidants? Do I have enough fats? Do I have enough proteins to make muscle? Do I have all these check marks filled up? No. Okay, well, you better eat more. So it gives you more hunger, even though you've already eaten so many calories. So protein is satiating. It helps your body check those boxes off and go, oh, okay, we're done. And you will stay fuller much longer the more protein you include in all of your meals. Okay, 4th principle, fat doesn't make you fat. Bad fat makes you fat, but fat doesn't make you fat. So people, like 100 years ago, people never thought about fats. People just ate. And they didn't really think about whether or not the food was fattening. This is something that really came up. It started in about the 70s. There was this doctor who did this research, and he basically came out and said, fat is bad for you. It creates problems with cholesterol and heart disease, and therefore we need to make all foods low fat. And so it started this whole low fat craze kind of in the 80s, but it really peaked in the 90s. So what you've got in front of you, and I'm just going to distill this down. There were so many years of these maps, and I've only given you a small handful, but what I want to show you is the trend. Here's what happened during the low fat craze. So what this map is showing is obviously the United States, and the blue states, so the white states they didn't have data for. You'll see as the maps progress, those states get filled in with color as they get data, but the light blue states were states that had a population with a BMI over 30. There was less than 10% of the population with a BMI or body mass index over 30, so obesity. These people were obese. And the dark blue squares, they were states that had 10 to 14% of the population with a body mass index over 30, or they were obese. Okay, this was in 1990. Look what happens if I show you 1999. So in that 9 years, first of all the states are filled in with color now. Now we've only got a couple of light blue states that are 10 to 14%. We've got, we don't have any states that are 10 to 14%. We have a whole bunch of states that are dark blue. They are 15 to 19% obesity. And then we've got these tan states that are over 20% obesity. So we have this great big jump in obesity rates. Now if I show you 2001, so just 2 years later, we have we don't have any light blue states. We have one medium blue state left, that's Colorado, holding out there. The mountain people, super active, love their active lifestyle. So they're still hanging in there at 15 to 19%. But still, 15 to 19% of the population is considered obese. We've got lots of states that are in the 20 to 24% range. And then now we've got this new color, this red state that's 25%. So more than a quarter of the population is considered obese in this particular state. See what's happening here in 2004. So now we're 3 years later. Look how many red states there are. Even Colorado, we're not in the 15 to 19% anymore. We are in the Colorado's in the 20 to 24% range. And look at the number of tan states that are in that 20 to 24% range. And look at the number of red states that are a quarter of the population or more is obese. 2007. Okay, so Colorado's still holding out as the healthiest state there from a body mass index perspective. Not that many tan states anymore at the 20 to 24% range. Look how many red states are in the 25 to 29% range. So almost a third of the population is considered obese, and we have another new color. We have in some of those southern states there, we have a dark red or a sort of a burgundy color where more than 30%, more than 1/3 of the population is considered obese, and this is 2007. So the question that I would ask you is, how did the low fat craze do? It was terrible. It was horrendous from a health perspective. That was one of those massive science oops where people kind of look back and went, oh my goodness, we were dealing with faulty information, and look at the disaster that it caused. So why did that happen? Well, because when you take fat out of food, you also take a lot of the taste out. So then they have to replace the taste with salt and sugar to make it palatable. And so then you've got all this extra salt and sugar, which when you don't burn off enough sugar, guess what it gets stored at? As fat. So the low fat craze, by removing fats from food, you actually made people fatter because all this extra sugar in their bodies was just being stored. It was an absolute disaster. So that's why I say to people, your high cholesterol, your heart disease, it's not caused by the cholesterol in your food. It's caused by the sugar that's in your food and the inflammation that it creates in your body. Your body's just trying to buffer it with cholesterol. So if you look at, for example, I ask people this all the time. What would your grandma say if you burnt the skin on your hand? What would your grandma tell you to put on it? And you might say, if your grandmother was raised on a farm like mine was, you put butter on it. Why? Because the fat's soothing. Well, cholesterol it's a fat that our body creates. If your body creates a fat, there's a reason for it. So if you've got all this inflammation in your vessels because of all the sugar that's in there and it's just stirring things up and the bad fats that we're eating, what's your body going to do? Well, it's going to try and lay fat over it to soothe it, to buffer it. And best fat we have in our body is cholesterol. So that's your body creating cholesterol. And if you just start cutting out the sugar in the foods that are creating all this inflammation, your body will go, oh, I don't need the cholesterol so much anymore, and your cholesterol levels will go down. Your blood pressure will likely follow. So again, I'm not your doctor. I'm not telling you, I can't advise you what to do if you're not my patient, but I will tell you I have had so many patients on medications for cholesterol and high blood pressure. And when I've taught them how to eat in a healthy way, they were able to work with their doctor to get off of those medications. Why? Because it was never a cholesterol problem, an external cholesterol problem to begin with. It was the cholesterol that was already inside their body. So we need healthy fats. Healthy fats, you've probably heard this a million times from a million different sources. Bad fats are bad. Healthy fats are great in the right proportion. So what is a healthy fat? Avocados are great. Butter and ghee. So ghee is just, it's the fat portion of butter where the protein's been removed. It's been clarified and the fat part is removed. So ghee is just butter fat. Now I will say with this, with butter and ghee, you want that butter source to be grass-fed cows. If you're talking about that's a whole other thing. Commercial raised cows, they're raised on a whole different diet that's very inflammatory for them. Whereas, grass-fed cows, they eat real food first. They eat grass, the thing that they were designed to eat. So the butter that comes from them, the dairy that comes from them is much healthier. Coconut oil, it's like 98% saturated fat. And we go, ooh, saturated fat. No, saturated fat, if it's a healthy fat and it's in the right proportion, is very good for you. So coconut oil is great. Extra virgin olive oil. Fish, omega-3 fats from fish is amazing. Free-range eggs, grass-fed beef, as I just mentioned before. MCT oil, so MCT stands for medium chain triglyceride oil. We often will put it in our coffee. It's a great way to give the coffee kind of a creamy flavor and get that healthy fat into us first thing in the morning. Full fat dairy, so all the skim milk that you were taught to drink, don't drink skim milk. If you're going to drink milk, drink your Homo milk. Drink the full, like the 3% fatty milk. Again, it's more satiating, it's better for you. And nuts and seeds. And what I've got there in brackets where it says in moderation, that actually applies to all of these things. When it comes to fats, any amount of healthy fat can still be unhealthy if you have too much of it. So you do want to watch your portions of things, and that's one thing we'll talk about right now. So principle 5, eat reasonable portion sizes. I think a lot of times people don't realize how little we actually need in a day to be very healthy with. Our portion sizes have gotten blown all out of proportion. So I love this little graphic here. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but I think the idea of being very intentional as you fill your plate with how much of each thing am I putting on my plate. So you ever notice that dinner plates have gotten so much bigger over the last 20, 30 years? Like a lot of times you can't fit a dinner plate in the dishwasher anymore. So having a reasonable sized plate is actually a really good thing. Go with the smaller plates. And when you're talking about what should I put on it, so see at the bottom right where it's got a blue palm and it says meat should be about the size of your palm. That's about right, or they say the size and thickness of a deck of cards. We don't need to have like a massive 16-ounce steak. That is way too much meat. So portion out. My palm is obviously going to be smaller than my husband's, and that makes sense. I need less protein than he would need. So about the size of a deck of cards or the palm of your hand. Ice cream, half the size of your fist. I think that's a great, go ahead and have ice cream as a treat. Ice cream's so good. But man, when you see the size of the scoops and the ice cream cones that kids walk away with, it's way too much ice cream for what we really need to feel like, I got the edge of that sugary, I want that sugary craving. You take the edge off it with just about that much of ice cream is all you need. Butter, the size of your fingertip. Okay, I might disagree with that one, especially if you're eating grass-fed butter. I think you can have more than that. Peanut butter, half the size of your thumb. Again, that's a pretty healthy fat. And if you're looking in relation, you have to know how many other healthy fats you've had in your day, but I think you can have a larger portion than that. But again, still just looking at, let's be intentional about the size. Cheese, the size of 2 fingers. Well, that's probably the right amount of cheese in a day for you. Pasta, the size of your fist. Yeah, I mean, you should only have about that much pasta because you want to satiate yourself with the other things that are better for you, things like your healthy fats and your protein. So, if you need to screenshot this graphic and just print it off and put it up on your fridge or put it up on your cupboards or whatever to remind yourself and your kids and your whole family. We eat with intention, and we're going to be intentional about how big the portions of each thing on our plate is. That's great. And I would say when it comes to veggies, unlimited. You probably can't eat too many veggies, although you can have too much butter or too much oil or things like that on the veggies that you eat. So you're probably not going to get fat if you ate a whole bunch of carrots, but if you had a whole bunch of carrots that are covered in coconut oil and butter, well, that's a different story. But you know what I mean. Okay, so those are the 5 principles. They're actually really, really simple. So where will most people miss the mark? And this is what I'm going to help you out with, because I find that there's only a handful of people that will actually implement the principles that I talk about. And then often those people, if I ask them 6 months later, are they still doing it? They say no. So this is where I found people typically will fall off the wagon or just completely miss the mark in the first place. The first thing is they keep the wrong food in the house. Okay, listen, I love potato chips as much as anybody. We can't keep them in the house because if they're in the house, we will all eat them. And I can't sit down with a bag of potato chips and just eat a portion of them. Even if I'm talking like a massive Costco-sized bag, I will sit down and eat until the entire bag is gone. I don't know what's wrong with me. It wasn't like that for me 10 years ago, but it's sure like that for me now. So guess what I don't keep in the house? Potato chips. I buy them when I want them. So if I know, for example, on Saturday night, my husband and I are going to sit down and watch a movie, I'll get us a bottle of wine and a bag of potato chips. And we don't finish the wine. I don't drink a bottle of wine at a time. I don't have any problem putting a cork on the bottle of wine, but the bag of potato chips, I know that it's going to get eaten that night, and when it's done, it's done. Those are the kind of things you have to watch. If you've got all sorts of cookies and crackers and potato chips and granola bars and all of these different things, bagels and all of these things that will steer you wrong in the house, you have to get them out. Because if they're there, if you are a normal human being, you will eat them. And we just have to know that about ourselves. And we need to put the right things in place that help us to get to where we want to go. Second thing, and this is especially if you're a mom, you're going to try and get everybody on board first. And what I'm telling you is, don't worry about everybody else, save yourself. I think that, the idea of change is hard for people. And so what a lot of women will do is try and get their husbands to understand why they're doing this. And husbands will go, no, because they're thinking, no, I like my white bread, or I like my pasta. Or they're thinking, okay, now we're going to be eating tofu and gross stuff all the time. Don't. Just start making simple, I call them lateral changes. So, instead of having white pasta, get whole wheat pasta. I don't actually think whole wheat pasta is all that healthy either, but it's a start. Instead of buying crackers and bagels and bread, skip the bagels next week in your grocery run and just start like slowly getting things out of the house and making the shifts, and just start cooking that way. One of the things I found is if children are hungry enough, they will eat what you're serving, and they may not like it in the beginning, but eventually they're going to eat because they're too darn lazy to do it for themselves. So, just save yourself first. And, I have found too that a lot of women, when they start seeing the positive changes, when they become happier, when they start losing weight, when they feel better, have more energy, husbands like that. And that's when they start coming on board, when they see, okay, there's some good changes happening here. I can be on board with that. Third thing is you don't build enough cheat days into it and it feels like work. Listen, I think food should be enjoyed. I think we were put on this earth to enjoy food, and so many of our great family moments, when I think back to my own family growing up, so much of it revolves around eating. Eating is awesome. We should love eating. It's just that we can't do holiday eating all the time. So make sure you build in cheat days. As I'm recording this is Easter weekend. I am totally having my Toblerone top cheesecake tomorrow, and ham, and we're having scalloped potatoes. We're having what we call resurrection buns, which is basically just bread with marshmallows baked into it in the morning. I mean, we're having all those things. Awesome. But I don't eat like that every day. And so I think having those days where this is coming up this weekend, so I'm just going to make sure I'm really on track with my nutrition through the week so I can eat whatever I want on Sunday and not even think about it. Fourth thing is a lack of planning. Especially if this is new for you, it takes planning. You need to write out, what are you going to eat this week? What are the meals we're going to have? What are the groceries that I need for it? So it is something that does require a certain amount of planning. Otherwise, you're just going to fall back to what's normal for you, sort of what's easy for you, what's comfortable for you, what's doable for you. So make sure that you build a certain amount of planning time. And I will tell you, quite honestly, it takes a lot of planning in the beginning. You may need to spend an hour a week just planning this out in the beginning, but you'll get it down. When you get good at this, you may have to spend 10, maybe 15 minutes planning a week to be able to do this. It's like anything. Once you get the skill and you get used to doing it, it just comes like that. And the last thing is, people give up too soon. You have the rest of your life to do this. We overestimate what we can do in the short term, and we totally underestimate what we can do in the long term. You know, one of my favorite people in the world, I remember when she was learning this with us, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we were teaching these principles, and she said, you know, I think I just want to take it slow. I just want to implement one new thing a week. And she would start by, okay, this week we're just not going to have bagels in the house. So she still have whatever she would normally eat, but just cut out the bagels. And then the next week, she would replace something with something else. So you have all the time in the world. You have the rest of your life to get from here to here. The point is just to not give up and just keep going. And the more you learn, keep going back to the table again. Keep learning new things. Keep trying new things. You know, I remember when I first started doing this years and years ago, it was a new thing for me too. And we'd be great for 2 or 3 months. And then we just go back to the way we always did things for like 6 months. And then we get some kind of a wake-up call. Usually it was we were teaching a workshop on this, and my husband and I would say, okay, we need to get back to eating like this. That's okay. Everybody does that. But I think the thing for us was that we did it, so we just kept coming back so often, kept resetting so often, that now this is how we do our life. This is how we do nutrition. This is nutrition in the Dingman house because it's become a habit for us. This is how we eat. And even when we go away, say, to an all-inclusive, we still kind of eat like this a lot because this is just how we do it. And that's the way it can get for you, but it's taken us 10 or 12 years to get to this point. You know, do I regret the fact that I'm 48 and I'm just kind of really good at this? Well, okay, not just now, but like, you know, in my 40s. No, because at least we got there. And I just didn't know these things when I was younger. So don't give up. Just keep on going. And sometimes if you need someone to just hold you accountable, let me know. And I'll just help you get back on the wagon again. You know, I always say, make like Dory and just keep swimming. You just keep on going. Life is like that. All of these things in our lives that we learn that help to make us better, we just have to keep going with it and just trust the process and just trust that every day, every month, every year, we can get better. And if you have any questions at all, I would be happy to help you. I am at Elevate Women's Health Centre. My office is in Port Perry, Ontario, but I do lots of, well, now I can do virtual visits, certainly lots of phone consultations. You can call me, you can text me, you can email me. I'm on Facebook, Shauna Dingman. My office is on Facebook, Elevate Women's Health, and I'm on Instagram at Dr. Shauna Dingman. So you know how to get in touch with me with all those different ways. So I hope this has been really, really helpful for you. Let's just stop the share. I hope that it's been super helpful, that it's answered a lot of your questions. I hope that it has seemed simple. And like I said, if you ever want to know more, look out for other Life by Design series of workshops. So Think by Design, Move by Design. We do tons of advanced workshops too. I mean, everything from mental health in kids to raising healthy kids to immunity to allergies. I mean, all those other kinds of things. We do all sorts of workshops like that. And if you go to the events page on my website, elevatewomenshealth.ca, you will see those events there. So if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. And in the meantime, have a wonderful day.